Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Question. How do we call him? He gave us a signal.
Tired of watching everyone else make money on your money? Let's flip the switch from saving your money to spending it.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, best-selling author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
As of the date of this recording, March 17th, 2020, as we watch the coronavirus wreak havoc and downright panic to consumers, government officials, and as a result, a crashing stock market, we should be starkly reminded of just how dangerous a financial world we live in. Because not only is this world and all that it contains unpredictable, but the reaction to the uncertainty that life can bring can result in a paralysis of sorts that we don't know what to do, or in some cases, we panic, follow the herd, and do all sorts of crazy things. And as we'll see today, with all of this chaos and uncertainty going on in the world right now, there's good news as it relates to you and your money, and more importantly, how best to position it from financial pandemics such as the one we're experiencing. We are now experiencing today something that's going to flip the switch, and I'm going to tell you why you have got to put in place a game plan that includes spending your money while you still can, instead of just saving it and stockpiling it for some random event of time in the future. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I am that little man in the sweater vest, saving and spending specialist, Tony Walker. And before we get started, let me introduce America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with his faithful sidekick at the technical helm, Miss Megan Murphy. Okay, speaking of flipping the switch, what in the world is going on here? I mean, a few months ago, we were all riding along nicely. The stock market was doing great. Unemployment was, and for now still is, one of the lowest points in history of our country, and people seemed fairly secure in their jobs. Life was running along fairly normal for most people, but bam! Out of the blue, a virus of unknown origins rears its ugly head in China. And then the next thing you know, the good old US of A is out of toilet paper. And of course, I'm forced now to cancel a golf trip with my brother Marty down to Orlando. So what's up with this virus, and why is this virus, of all viruses, causing so much panic and an ensuing disastrous effect to the stock market and to the economy? Which, by the way, I do believe it is not a long-lasting issue, folks. And here's why. We've been here before. So why in the world does this particular virus, why is it causing so much shock to the stock market and creating a nosedive effect? Well, as this graphic illustrates, this country has had several major outbreaks of flus and various viruses, but as you'll notice, as a whole, nothing has really happened to this extent. There has been no shutting down of our country, so to speak. In fact, as far as the stock market is concerned, not much has really happened at all in the past with these types of viruses. No one seemed to really create a panic. Major news didn't cover it 24/7. Rather, people just adjusted. The government reacted in the best way they knew how. And our lives moved on, and so did the stock market. But again, here we are in the March 17th, 2020 era, and we got to deal with the reactions of the world to this new virus, which again, my hope is and my prayer is that it's very short-lived. However, I am a retirement planning specialist here, folks. I'm not Dr. Drew. I don't know much about viruses and vaccines, but as a result of being in this field for over 35 years, of meeting with over 15,000 savers and working on over 4,000 retirement income plans, I do know a thing or two about money, and more importantly, how people can better use and enjoy and protect more of it, and in return, while they still can. So if you're downright dismayed over what's happened, downright depressed about the state of our financial affairs, fear not. because when I return, I'm going to show you how to gain a more realistic perspective on your money and also on your life so you can quit worrying so much about it. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. Good stuff coming up. You stay tuned. I'll be right back. Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. You know, we care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 2,000 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Let me ask you a question. What is the main goal of you working your whole life and saving all this money for retirement if the answer is to simply try to grow it to some mystical, magical, rainy day age? And you'd say, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, Tony. And I would say, wait a minute, that's the wrong answer. You see, to me, as someone who has met in person with over 15,000 savers and worked on over 4,000 written game plans, the purpose of money, your main goal, is quite simple: to use and enjoy this money you've worked so hard to save before it's too late. You know, in my recent book, Live Well, Die Broke, I dealt with this very subject of spending your money while you still can without the fear of running out of it. I guess the topic must have hit a nerve as the book hit bestseller status on Amazon. Oh, speaking of spending money, did you realize that survey after survey reveals that retirees' greatest fear is not death or dying, it's running out of money? So with this fear, why don't more people put in place a game plan to enjoy more of their money now and make sure that they have products that guarantee that they won't one day run out? Now, as we've seen, the stock market is not in the realm or business of guarantees. Take a look at this graphic of the returns of the stock market these past 12 months. Look at this. If you would have liquidated your stock holdings over the past month and spent any of it, all of those gains you thought you had these past 12 months are now on paper. If you don't spend it, folks, it's not real money. This money is now gone. That's because when you have money in the stock market, and assuming you aren't spending any of it, this money is really not real. It's just a value that is based on what someone thinks it's worth, or someone's opinion, if you will. It's really not fact. You don't believe me? Pull out your 401k statement right now and compare it to what it was worth a year ago on paper. That money that you thought you had is not there. Now, will it come back? Yeah, I'm confident it will come back, but we're talking about needing money now. That's the purpose of today's show, is spending versus savings. So in terms of feeling free to spend it, that's off the table right now. I mean, most people are not going to liquidate something that's down 30% and start spending money. Oh, speaking of what people are thinking now and the market and how it's tanked and all the uncertainty in the world, last night, our company, Tony Walker Financial, made the executive decision to go ahead and host a free workshop that we have been in the works for months. Now, well aware that 60 or some odd people who had signed up and registered for this workshop would probably not show up, much to our surprise, we actually had 5 people. And since it was a very small group, I opened it up for questions, and you know what they all agreed on after watching my presentation on saving versus spending? They all admitted that what they needed most was not some magic bullet or 100% of their money in the stock market. What they all agreed they needed, which they didn't have, was a written game plan. You see, folks, what you're missing is not the perfect investment, but the perfect game plan. One that is clear, concise, and tailored to your spending needs. One that looks like this. Folks, when you meet with a retirement planning specialist, you're supposed to have an assessment. You're supposed to have a game plan. You're supposed to have someone that implements the game plan. And finally, you're supposed to have somebody that helps monitor your progress so that you can use and enjoy this money. Now, I've been doing this 35 years. I've personally met a lot of people, written a lot of game plans, been involved in a lot of retirement planning issues. So here's what I would say. You owe it to yourself to get with us and let me walk you through the process, see how we can help you, and make sure that your money is positioned to use it when you need it. Now, I created a handy-dandy graphic here that depicts what we call the real world of needs. The whole idea of what you're going to need in the future and how you need to position that money. This is really, really helpful stuff. So let's kind of walk through this. This is what I've learned over the years about needing money. Remember, folks, if the money is to be positioned so we can use it when we need it, then we have to be careful about where it's positioned. You can't have 100% of your money in the stock market. That's why you need to follow something like this. Let's look at the first, we'll call it box of money. The first box of money is the money you need now. Now, what are we talking about here? We're just talking about expenses. Let's go over a couple of these ideas of expenses. Maybe you've got a homeowner's insurance, you've got a house payment, you've got a car payment, you've got gasoline, you've got food, you've got, obviously there's lots of need for toilet paper out there nowadays. You have these needs and you have to have money that makes sure those expenses are met, which of course is one of my concerns now with everything shutting down. There's a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of money. They have these expenses and these expenses aren't going away, and if you shut off their income, I don't know how in the world they're going to meet expenses. Well, the same thing happens in retirement planning. These expenses don't go away. So let's look at the next box. This is the need later box. This is what we call your future income or retirement income. Folks, you're saving money for later. That's what retirement planning is all about. And of course, if you're working with Tony Walker Financial, depending on how much assets you have, we're probably going to recommend that you put in some mailbox money. Why? Because when you get into retirement, we want to make sure we have a guaranteed, let me repeat that, guaranteed source of income you can never outlive. All right, the third box, might need now money. Now, what in the world is this, Tony? Well, some of you are sitting there with no money in savings. Now, I don't understand this because things will come up. Repairs, a new car, etc. Let me give you an example of this. My daughter Lacey, thankfully she's okay, but her and our two grandchildren were in a very bad accident here. Somebody broadsided them down here on Shelbyville Road in Louisville. Now, the car I'd given them was an old Toyota with 200,000 miles on it. This was a dandy of a car, but it was older, folks, and had 200,000 miles. The insurance company, the other insurance company paid for that vehicle, but only what's called the actual cash value. They're not going to replace that car. So my daughter and son-in-law had to come up with the money, fortunately they had it, to buy a new car with the difference the insurance company made. Not a great deal, but thankfully they had the money. And then finally, the might need later. Well, what's that all about, Tony? That could include long-term care. You know, you could go into a facility. Nobody plans on that, but that could happen. And then this is what I'm seeing a lot, helping people that are in your immediate family. Do you know how many people I'm meeting with now? Just happened on Monday of this past week. Had clients come in, hadn't seen them in a couple of years, had a little fellow running around with them, and I said, hey, I knew they couldn't have had that child that age. I said, who's this little fella? They said, that's our grandchild. I said, oh, isn't he cute? Where's his mother? Oh, our daughter. He and our daughter now live with us full time. So I'm sure 20 years ago, we hadn't talked about that. Little Junior here wasn't even born. Nobody would have suspected that they would need money later to help out with the cost, which they're glad to do, associated with a grandson and daughter who's just moved back in with them. So how do we accomplish all that? What do we really do with a model like this? Well, let's take a look at this. The reason we have our split IRA concept and the reason we use Charles Schwab is an investment company. We use a lot of investments there. There is some risk with Charles Schwab, but we're not putting all the money there. That's not what we're using. We're not trying to use Charles Schwab like a 401k and trying to grow your money to some future date and take all kinds of risk. What we're doing is we're covering current expenses and then the might need now expenses with Schwab. Why do we do that? Well, since we're known around the country for the amount of annuities we use, unfortunately annuities are not very liquid. So we use annuities for the need later, and we also use annuities for the might need later. See how this works, folks? This is not rocket science. We want to get control over our money, so to do that we have to position it properly. We have to understand the needs of money, and we have to understand, more importantly, that things are going to change. Just like this coronavirus. Nobody, I don't care who they are, I don't care what they're trying to pitch or sell now, nobody would have ever predicted that this virus would have come out of nowhere and that it would have wreaked such havoc economically. This is why most of our clients are not real worried about this. Yeah, do some of our clients have some money in the market? Is it down? Yeah, it's down. Should they stay put? More than likely, most of them should, because we've got other monies available. We've got a game plan that meets these unexpected situations that will, not can, that will arise. Well, how about you? You may be sitting there saying, Tony, you know what? All I've been doing is just throwing money into the market blindly, and people are telling me to hang in there, and I'm worried sick. Well, that's you. If you don't have a game plan like this, if we've been flipping the switch here and you're realizing, hey man, a light's going off here, there is hope, there is something different I can do with my money, why don't you do this? Why don't you log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And once there, all you got to do is click on the Let's Get Started button, and we will be happy to meet with you in person to review your situation. Oh, by the way, this is really cool. In anticipation that we wouldn't have many people at last night's workshop in Louisville, I asked America's favorite financial sidekick, I said, hey, Aaron, come along, man, and bring me a camera. Let's record this just in case nobody shows up, because we want to rebroadcast this new information called The Ages and Stages of Life. I'm excited to say that Aaron and Megan have put this together. You can watch that presentation by going to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on Educational Opportunities, and click on the blog post. You'll see it there. Just click on that and watch that entire presentation of the ages and stages of retirement. I hope you'll enjoy that, and I hope you'll be motivated to talk to us and reach out, because there are things you can still do with your money, yes, during these turbulent times. When I come back, this is going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I've done personally, and it's displayed in the book, Live Well, Die Broke. This is some cool stuff. It's not that you should do it exactly like this, but how have I prepared myself for uncertain times such as these, and at the same time been able to set myself up to use and enjoy my money now and later. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm going to have Aaron get the whiteboard out. Let me get some coffee here. I'll be right back.
And now it's time for the adventures of Stella, Scout, and Ivy.
Oh. I can't do that with my neck. Okay, go again. Back up. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Oh.
You've been watching the adventures of Stella, Scout, and Ivy.
Attention 401k and IRA owners. If you've experienced a 20% loss or more in your retirement account, contact Tony Walker now. With tax rates at an all-time low and the stock market in a free fall, don't miss this unique opportunity to see if Tony Walker's 401k planning strategies are right for you. Act now. Call the number on your screen or log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
We have trouble spending our assets. We don't have trouble spending our income.
But that's what the data says. It says that once we start viewing that money as wealth, as a stock of money, and not necessarily as a flow, then we seem to get less happiness out of spending it than we do from money that's already automatically turned into a flow.
Taking a look at Live Well, Die Broke. Page 112 is what we're talking about in my book. If you're just now joining us, we're talking about the idea of saving versus spending, and how come people don't have a game plan to spend and enjoy their money now and later. We talked about the 4 needs that you will have, and why having a written game plan and a trained retirement planning specialist is so crucial for a worry-free retirement. So again, you don't have to do your plan like mine. I'm just showing you what I've tried to position in terms of money. I call this Tony's Spending Game Plan, and I basically have 3 buckets. This bucket is called my liquid bucket. This bucket is called my mailbox money bucket. Remember, mailbox money is guaranteed income for the rest of your life that you can never outlive. So that's why I believe savers need some money in annuities. They're the only thing that can guarantee an income you can never outlive. And then finally, this is a bucket you may or may not want to have, but I want to have this. I worry about my children and grandchildren, and I worry they're not going to have the same opportunities that we have. I worry about future tax rates. I worry about inflation. and I want to try to leave them money, if at all possible, after I die. We're giving our money to our kids now while we can, tax-free, and then when we die, we would like to leave them money, I call it legacy money, tax-free. We can show you how to do this type of thing. I've been doing this for years, folks, and I do eat my own cooking, as John Bogle used to say. I do practice what I preach, and all these products I'm showing you, I have these for myself. So let's look at a few of these products. So I have money in the bank. Folks, there's nothing wrong with having money in the bank. Everybody's worried about 1% interest or whatever you get. What's better than losing 20% in the market? So yes, I believe in having some money in the bank. I've got that for liquid needs. I have a Charles Schwab account. Now the Schwab account I have is what's called a non-qualified account. I've already paid taxes on it. So I've got some of that money positioned in government bonds and money markets so I can get access to it at any time with very little risk. Let's put it that way. Actually, no risk. So I have the Schwab account, and then, this is something people really don't understand. The people out there, the never say never crowd, that tell you never to buy life insurance that has cash value, they have no clue what they're talking about. The reason I've got this building at Tony Walker Financial in Louisville is I borrowed it from myself from my cash value of life insurance. Cash value is very liquid. I don't have to do any loan paperwork. I can call the company and I'll have a check tax-free via loans in less than 1 week. I think that's pretty good and it's guaranteed. Then you have the mailbox money. Obviously, that's annuities. You can also use the Schwab account for mailbox money. Now, it's not guaranteed, but I can set the Schwab accounts up for myself and for you if you're a client so that we can pay you a steady stream of income for a certain period of time. It works great. And then, yes, I have some real estate that I receive rental income. Finally, my legacy money. This is the one my kids and grandkids are going to really love because the idea is me and Susan, while we're alive, want these two buckets drained. You see, in a perfect world, we die broke. What we mean by that is we've spent and enjoyed all this money. These buckets are gone because sometimes they're not real tax efficient, but we're going to leave all this tax-free money to our kids. No taxes. What would that be? The death benefit of life insurance. Anything that gets what's called a step-up in basis. In other words, when you die, it gets a new cost basis, so there's no taxes, and that would include real estate, individual stocks outside of an IRA, etc. So personally for me, I don't have a lot of IRA money and 401k money. I don't want to deal with that tax tumor. I try to deal with it up front. So if you don't have anything like this, if you would like to sit down and have something similar to this drawn up, I can do this at no cost or obligation. It's easy to do. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button, and let's talk by phone or meet in person. TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, there sure is a lot of fear going on right now with this coronavirus, and man's reaction to it kind of exposes the fact that we're living in a dark world, but God's light is always ready to shine on it. Let's see what the Bible has to say about this whole situation. I'll be right back, though. I got to get a cup of coffee, big time.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. You know, as we struggle with the whole coronavirus thing and the reaction to it, we realize a lot of people are living in fear right now. And you know what? For a Christian, to live in fear is not natural. That's because we are placing our trust in an unnatural state or an environment. This would be like savers trusting the stock market with all their money. That's not a natural environment to be in. It's like right now, you may be feeling like, gosh, I don't feel like I belong here. Nothing feels right. Well, what I'd say if you're a Christian, praise God. It's not supposed to feel normal here, folks. The first step, the right direction when you see any disaster like this coming on, is not to turn to man for his opinions and ideas, but to turn to God's wisdom. If you're a Christian You have been transformed by God's Spirit. You're not supposed to feel natural in this world. You know, I'd like to use this analogy. It would be like jumping in the water and trying to hold your breath for 3 or 4 minutes. You can do it for a while, but to be submerged in water is not a natural environment. In fact, you'd have to come up for air eventually. Well, you might say, well, Tony, what I did is I went down to the guy with the scuba shop and got some scuba gear, and I jumped in the water and was able to stay under there for an hour or two. Well, you know what? It's still not natural, and eventually you got to come out of that water and into the more natural environment, and that would be God's wisdom. You know, God has a lot to say about His wisdom, and one of the most interesting verses of Scripture can be found in Proverbs 31:10. The first part of that verse says this, "An excellent wife who can find? For her worth is far more above jewels." Verse 11 says, "The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will lack no gain." Folks, God is not talking about your earthly wife here. He's talking about wisdom that comes from knowing God. His wisdom is like a lifeline. It's an oxygen tank to sustain you and I in this unnatural place we call the world. He is the only one where we can find peace, and He is the only one that provides wisdom. Think about this. Let's close with this. Proverbs 3:5 says this. It says, during all this kind of turmoil, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your, I would say if anybody else's, understanding. Verse 6 says, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but regardless of how much money you've got left in your 401k, how much money you got sitting in the bank, here's the point. If you don't have somebody that you can trust with your money, someone that has some wisdom, someone that has some experience, someone who's been through the ups and downs, someone who understands the importance of a written game plan, then you have very little hope of being worry-free. I'm Tony Walker. I want the opportunity to meet with you, to share with you about our process, the Worry-Free Retirement, and share with you the wisdom I've gained over the past 35 years in understanding that there is no perfect product, there is no perfect solution, there is only you and I and somebody that you can trust sitting down and laying out a game plan that is going to meet the changing things that will come your way, changes that we know will happen. So why don't you do this? Log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Let's get started. Be happy to meet with you at no cost or obligation and to put together a game plan that you can study and see if it's right for you. Log on now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, guess what? On next week's show, I've got some really good news because even though things are a little down right now, I'm going to share some financial strategies that will lift you up. Join us next week on the Worry-Free Retirement, but you remember, between now and then, absolutely, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.